If you're co-parenting with someone narcissistic, here's a few things that I know about you. Number one, you're angry. You're angry at them. You're angry on behalf of your kids because you hate that they have to go through all this. Two, you're worried. You're scared about the influence that this person has in your kids' lives. You're worried about how they're being treated when you're not around to protect them, right? Three, you're exhausted. You're tired of all the fighting. You're tired of feeling helpless to change this situation. You're tired of doing the work of two parents. And four, there's some guilt and shame in there. You beat yourself up for even finding yourself and your family in this situation at all. And all that makes sense. But the truth is, it's time to forgive yourself. You were doing the best you could with the information you had at that time. It's time to give yourself the same grace and compassion that you would to a good friend. What advice would you give them? Continue beating themselves up? No, you would tell them, you have to forgive yourself. A lot of this work that needs to happen when we're dealing with a narcissistic co-parent is not about changing them, right? It's about changing the way that we see the situation. Yes, it feels helpless sometimes. Yes, you're angry. Rightfully so. All that makes sense. And the best thing that we can do in this situation is control what we can and let go of what we can't. We can't control what lies they tell our kids against us, right? We can't control whether they use our kids as pawns to hurt us or humiliate us. And it's scary, right? Sometimes we feel like they're brainwashing our kids against us. But we have to remember that we can't control any of that. And at the end of the day, love wins. Hate and evil never win in the long run, right? And kids are very smart. They pick up on a bunch of stuff that we don't. They can spot a liar. And in time, they will see the person that we are consistently showing up as, and it will prove that other person wrong. Remember, we're in this for the long run, right? Trust is built slowly and consistently over time, and narcissistic people can fake it for a time, but eventually the mask comes off because they don't actually want to do any of the work that selfless love requires. They have no actual interest in empathy or mutual respect or appreciation or emotional connection, even with their kids. And we can't control a lot of things in this situation, but we can control how we show up for our kids, right? Because the kids are the priority. We can keep them front and center. Everything is about them. We can be the best model for them. We can love them and set an example for what love truly looks like. We can teach them how to love each other in this house. We need to remember that our relationship with our ex is over. That means the fighting has to stop. It takes two people to fight. We can control how we react, right? We can control not to take the bait from the other side. Because narcissistic people love to bait you into a fight and then shame you for how you negatively react. Right? Why do they do that? Because it validates their worth and value. It boosts their ego. If they can say words and get you to react, get you to explode, it means that they are still important to you. So we have to stop taking the bait, because the thing that scares the narcissistic person the most isn't your anger, because your anger means you still care and they can get you to react. No, the thing that bothers a narcissistic person the most is your indifference. So give them as little energy to work with as possible. Always de-escalate the conversation. They are constantly trying to escalate things with lies or accusations or insinuations. Keep your responses short and neutral, or just say nothing at all. Silence communicates plenty. And this is an important distinction. I don't mean fake it just to get a rise out of them. I don't mean let's turn the tables on them and manipulate them and see how it feels for them. Let's cause them some pain. No. True healing looks like finally letting go of the desire to see them in pain and instead feel so sorry for them that they need to try to get a rise out of you. They need to make you angry. They need to lie and cheat and manipulate people in order to feel a sense of importance and satisfaction in their life. That's sad. Healing looks like taking the focus off of them entirely. We can't control how they show up. Let them say whatever they want. They don't see anything wrong with their behavior. Of course they're not going to change. Now, if they're dangerous, if they're a threat to our children's safety, then by all means get the authorities involved. But if we've already exhausted all of our resources, and by law they're still allowed to see their kids, even though we know they're not a good influence in their life, we have to let go of control in that area. That doesn't mean give up. That doesn't mean overlook bad behavior. It doesn't mean not holding them accountable. It simply means understanding what we can control and what we can't. We're smart enough to realize that when you're dealing with a narcissistic person, they're constantly trying to knock you off balance, right? They want to argue, they want to fight because it validates their importance. So we have to stop taking the bait. So what are you saying? Just let them lie? Let them do terrible things? Just let them get away with it? Well, you were never going to convince them anyways, right? You were never going to win that fight anyways. Have you ever fought with them and it went anywhere productive? No, of course not, because they're always the victim. We have to remember, what is the goal in fighting with them, right? What are we fighting for? respect, consideration for them to treat our children differently, it's not a fight that we can win. And I know why most of you are fighting, because you're fighting on behalf of your kids. You think the degree to which I fight with them and call this person out and tell them that they need to do better, that's how much I love my kids. And I think that's very loving, but you also need to know you're not setting a good example for them, right? And you're only destroying your own mental health. You can't fight with a narcissist and win. You have to accept that reality. It didn't work when you were together. It's certainly not going to work when they're your ex. They have no interest in a fair fight. They have no interest in understanding your side. There is nothing you could do to win that fight. They will just deny. And even if you had evidence, they can always fall back on, you made me act like that, or you do the same thing to me. It's a foolproof system to avoid any accountability. We have to realize that getting into these huge yelling matches, getting into these huge fights in front of our children is not good for them. It's teaching them that this is normal. This is a normal way two people communicate. This is how mom and dads fight. And that's not what you want to teach them. It doesn't mean that you're giving up. It doesn't mean that you're not fighting for your kids. It just means you're switching strategies. So how can we protect our kids against a co-parent that's narcissistic? One, we stop taking the bait. Like I said, we treat this person like a business interaction. Number two, we document as much as we can. Make all interactions over text or email if you can, so that way you have evidence. There's just no reason to talk with them in person if all they're going to do is be disrespectful, call you names, and belittle you. Tell them to talk to you over text or email. Watch how all of a sudden their tone changes, because now there's evidence against them. Because narcissistic people know how wrong it is to demean and belittle and disrespect people. That's why they only do it in front of certain people. Do they talk to their boss that way? No. So they know they can only get away with it with certain people, and they know they can get away with it with you. So limit conversations as much as possible. And remember, not everything justifies a response. You don't have to reply to every rude thing they say. Let them have the last word. It doesn't matter. We reply because we think we're trying to protect our image or we're fighting for our kids. But remember, this isn't a fight we can win. No is a complete sentence. Stop over-explaining yourself to people who have no interest in learning about your perspective. Now, this is important. I'm not saying be rude. I'm saying elevate. They go low, we go high, right? Be as kind and considerate as possible. Because they deserve it? No. Because I'm not going to let them steal who you are. You're a kind person, right? They can't take that away from you anymore. They've stolen enough from you. Your peace, your sanity. They've made you feel crazy. They've made you feel worthless. It's time to stop letting them take things from you. That's where healing starts. When we come back to ourselves and say no more. It makes sense why this person affected me so much. I gave them all of me, and all they did was take, but no more. I'm not going to let them dictate how I feel about myself. I'm not going to let them ruin my life because of their own pain and misery and shame. Those aren't my problems. I will no longer allow them to try to drag me down through the mud where they are. That's the beginning of healing. Because 100% people can affect the way that we think about ourselves, right? But healing starts the moment we realize that we are ultimately in charge of that. How dare we give someone else the power to dictate how we feel about ourselves? There is so much healing that happens when we start to take radical accountability for the ways that we gave them too much power in our lives, right? There's so much healing that happens when you say, your behavior has nothing to do with me, and I made it about me. I believed you when you said I was crazy or worthless. I gave you that power, and now it's my choice to take it back. They don't get to tell you who you are anymore. If you have a narcissistic co-parent, you better know who you are. You better be firm on the fact that you are valuable and you're worthy of kindness and respect, because they're going to try to tell you otherwise. Now, like I said, do other people affect us? Of course they do. That's why boundaries are so important. This is a boundary. I decide how much access of me you have. That's a boundary. It doesn't matter how you feel about it. Now that we're not together anymore, I get to decide how much of my time and energy goes into being around you or communicating with you. So take your power back, right? What comes out of your mouth is up to you. How you feel about yourself is up to you. How you react to someone who is disrespectful and inconsiderate and just plain mean is up to you. Of course they're going to still try to make you feel guilty, right? Of course they're going to weaponize your self-reflection. They bank on the fact that you question yourself. When they labeled you as the problem, you thought, what if they're right? What if I am the problem? But never once have they asked themselves that same question. That should be all you need to know about who they are. We can be kind without being passive. We can model love for our kids and choose to not return evil for evil. We can be kind and we can be assertive and clear and direct with our communication. We can set healthy boundaries around disrespectful people. Kindness and consideration does not mean tolerance towards hurtful behavior, because that wouldn't be loving and kind to yourself. A boundary around communication sounds like this. I'm happy to talk with you about the kids, but the moment you start calling me names or belittling me or yelling, I will leave that conversation. That's a boundary. It doesn't require them to agree with it for you to enforce it. And of course, they're going to call you immature. Of course, they're going to say you're being unfair or you're abandoning your family. Let them say whatever they want. You were never going to convince them of anything anyways, right? They've already made up their mind about how they feel about you. And remember, we're doing this for our kids. You need to be as emotionally unreactive as possible. The reason we get pulled into these fights with them is because we have a deep history with them, right? But we can't let that affect us. We have to figure out a way to move on from the past because we're doing this for our kids. Once they turn 18, you never have to talk to this person again if you don't want to. But right now, we're going to do what we have to do for our kids. So be clear about communication. Over-communicate over text. Let's be clear about what the plan is so there's no misinterpretations. But let's just be honest here. You're going to have to pull more of the emotional labor. You're going to have to be more flexible when they drop the ball. We have to expect that. That's the way it was when you were together, and that's the way it will always be until your kids are 18. You're going to have to sacrifice more time, energy, more mental labor just to make things work. But just remember, you're not sacrificing for them. You're doing it for your kids. Go into this knowing that your ex is always going to have to be the victim, right? You don't have to show them proof when they lie. They wouldn't believe it anyways. Just move the conversation along. Just say, okay, whatever needs to move the conversation along to end this. Speak to a lawyer around what limits you're allowed to set and which ones you aren't. Because I would imagine it's really scary when you don't know what's happening when your kids are with them, right? It feels very helpless and not have any control over that situation. You and I both know there's going to be things that we can enforce and there's things that we don't like, but we have no control over. Maybe they have a new girlfriend or boyfriend and we don't want our kids hanging out with them. Can we enforce that by law? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. We can ask them not to have our kids around this person, but they're just going to do whatever they want. The point is that there's a lot that we can't control in these situations. And acknowledging and learning how to process that grief and pain and fear is still really helpful. See, I want to turn those feelings into action. We want to transform that fear into anger because anger is motivating. We can get to work, right? But so often we don't allow ourselves to actually feel that fear or pain. Don't skip that step. It's actually helpful for your emotional maturity. Sit with that fear and helplessness. It's real and it's powerful and it's communicating something to you. Listen and then talk with someone about that. But in the meantime, the best way that we can show up for our kids, even if someone unhealthy is in the picture, is to model what love truly looks like. Because you and I know love means serving and sacrificing for someone else. Love is all about consideration. Love is all about curiosity. Love is all about understanding each other, showing up for each other. Love is all about growing our bond together. Love is all about showing someone kindness and respect in the way we speak to them, right? Love is about consistency. Love is about repair because we're going to have ruptures. But love says, you mean more to me than any rupture that we have because love takes accountability. Love can say, I'm sorry. Let's talk about how that affected you. Because love is a safe place for you to express your pain or feelings and feel heard and held. You want to protect your kids from narcissistic influence? All you have to do is show them what real love feels like. Because the vast majority of people will choose love over hate every time. We're connective beings. We want to experience safety with someone else. Unless there's mental health issues, people will gravitate towards love and true connection over hate every time. You want to protect your kids from narcissistic influence, teach them about love and emotional safety and how we can apologize when we mess up, how we care about each other's feelings. Teach them about respect and kindness so that when they see the opposite of that, they trust the signals that they feel in their body saying, this isn't love. And this is really important. This is not about pitting them against their other parent. This is not about making the other parent out to be the enemy. In fact, I would avoid saying anything intentionally negative about your co-parent. This isn't about creating division. This is about teaching them about love. So when things come up, don't say, well, that's just because your mom and dad doesn't know how to love you, right? They don't believe in love like we do over here. Just ask them. I think the loving thing to do is apologize when we make a mistake. Is that what you believe? And the other thing we need to teach them about love is that setting healthy boundaries is loving. We love ourselves when we express our limits. We love ourselves when we advocate for our needs. We love ourselves when we can respectfully and vulnerably talk about our feelings. We can teach them that I love myself so much that I will not tolerate someone else yelling at me or calling me names without demonizing our ex. Because I want my kids to understand love so well that in the future, when they're dating someone and they tell them that they love them, but there's no follow through, they know the difference. And the best way that they're going to find that out is by us modeling healthy boundaries and advocating for our needs. So become a safe place for them. Don't discourage them from spending time with their mom or dad. Just be a safe place for them. They will naturally gravitate towards a safer environment. And my guess is it's still really hard when they're not there, right? There's a lot of emotions that come up. The house feels so empty. And that's okay. Allow yourself to feel those feelings. One of the most important things in this process is prioritizing your own mental health again. Make sure you're building back your support system, because narcissistic relationships tend to isolate, right? They tried as hard as they could to isolate you from your friends and family. But now it's time to rebuild that support system, because we need other people in our life. You deserve help and healing and friendship. Do whatever you can to build back those really healthy areas of your life. Yeah, it's hard when they're gone, but this can also be used as a time for growth and reconnection with yourself. So go take those short trips that you've been putting off, right? Start those hobbies that were on the back burner. Because for years, all you've done is take care of everyone else. Who's taking care of you? Who's pouring into your cup? Nobody. So one, you got to find some people that actually enjoy pouring into your cup. And two, you need to pour into your own cup, because you deserve self-care. So often we find our worth and value in how much we serve and sacrifice for others. And that's a part of love, but that's not where your value and worth is found. Some of you have worked so hard that you're just to the point of exhaustion and burnout. And you can't pour from an empty cup forever without some major health issues. So let's ask ourselves, what fills our cup? What excites you? What refuels you? What helps you rest and relax? Can you even rest and relax without feeling guilty? Because you need to. And remember, consistency wins, right? We're not going to let chaos win. All we can do is be a consistent force for good in these kids' lives. All we can do is learn how to heal our own stuff, get to the root of our own trauma and shame, because that healing is going to penetrate every area of our lives for the good. And one day, when we're ready, we're going to want to get back out there. And that can be especially hard dating when you've gone through all this, right? When you've had your life turned upside down by someone narcissistic, you definitely put your walls up, right? You've got your guard up for good reason, right? You know how things can start out fine and then turn into something scary and miserable, and you never want to go through that pain again. And all of that makes sense. I just want to remind you that real love is out there for you, and you deserve that type of love. You don't need to feel like you have to become this perfectly healed version to experience it. We're all a work in progress. And you're going to find someone who puts in just as much intention and effort and energy into loving you as you do them. You're going to find someone who cares just as much about hearing you and understanding your feelings as you do with finding the right words to not upset them. You're going to finally find a teammate. It's going to feel amazing. So don't you dare let your narcissistic ex steal that hope from you. Don't build your walls up so high that you end up pushing away a good thing when it comes around. The trick isn't avoiding love entirely. It's realizing who has earned our trust enough to where we can truly open up and be vulnerable with them. The trick is taking things slow and recognizing the green flags that we deserve in a relationship, not just trying so hard to spot the red ones. So to close, I'm just so sorry that you have to go through this. Know that you are doing your best, right? Forgive yourself and stop fighting with people who have no interest in understanding you. Take radical accountability for your life and bring your power back to inside of you again. Keep loving those kids. You are their future inner voice. And when they have successful, fulfilling relationships one day, it will be because you showed them what love truly looks like. Kids are resilient. They can go through a lot of rough patches in their life if they have someone safe and consistent who is truly there for them. And that's you. They're really lucky to have you as their mom or dad. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.